Ừ. certain projects are gonna require engineering, that's a lot of the issues that we
I didn't have my mic on, sorry.
Oh, that's yours.
Oh my God.
They are. Parents are making it like probably to try 5 years. And I think what they did in 2011 is they wanted to branch out in Colorado. And so when I went on to the state security site. And the branch of DOLA, they're starting to list like, affiliated companies, and I think that they're starting like Utah Trust and Minnesota Trust. I think they're trying to branch out.
So Colorado Trust started in 95.
I believe it started 85.
It's supposed to be 85, but it might be a legacy company.
It doesn't,
Mhm.
maybe, that's not reflected on the second.
So I just wanted to add back to that July 18th memo. So if we're earning $50 a month at Park State Bank, at Colorado Trust, it would be $83 a month. So for $33 additional, according to your example,
You're saying right now where it is, it's insured.
correct.
All right, so we're losing
So if-
30, so we're basically paying $33 a month for insurance, for an insured.
Yeah,
450.
It's insured up to a,
250 at the FDIC.
right.
Where it is right now.
So if we have more than 250 in any institution, I say we spread it out.
Well, the only other thing, I think her point is like, there's no, correct me if I'm wrong, is that there's no insurance with Colorado. But even where it is right now, making 1/10%. It's still making. How much? 30 bucks
Yes, $33
$33.
less.
less. Yeah, so
And that's just using the example that was in the July 18th memo. So whether it's FDIC insured or not, doesn't really bother me. It is not FDIC and I have money there. But if it does matter to you, you need to be aware that there's a very small difference in the interest that's being earned.
So we're not paying, we're not making a whole lot. And
I'll get you
off that other one.
exact number.
At least we're not gonna lose it if this economy just completely.
There's a risk for not necessarily.
Right.
And we're only making like 20 bucks. The difference
Yeah.
would be 20 bucks. So we're paying 20 bucks essentially,
It's more than that.
leaving it.
So
Is it?
running this calculator, if we had per 100,000 in the plus products, so they have 3 tiers. And so the middle tier is very buses.
And if I may say, I'm just referring to your July 18th memo, which didn't even have a principal amount in it.
Okay.
I'm just using the chart, the $1,000 and the $50 that are in there.
$50 from part of the bank is right. I did check that.
Yeah.
Off their account. So money, 100 grand in the plus from January 1, 2022 to December 31, 2022
I've got that.
would have produced 1749.69, or $1,749.69.
In the plus.
That's per $100,000 per year,
Per year.
and that's per year.
That was for a calendar year based on the rate for 2020.
Roughly 1,700 a year for 100 days.
What do we have in?
We're about 89 days.
much are they making off of it on average? Was it 13%?
No.
Or 13,
4 or 5.
4 or 5?
Yeah.
Is that what they were making? No, I'm talking about the actual entity, Colorado Trust.
He explained it, it was,
But what, does that sound familiar?
well,
Or something like they were,
you know, if you have a 401k or whatever,
yeah.
that's your retirement. It's kind of the same deal, you know, you're tied to the stock market, you know.
Okay, well, we got 7:02. Ready to get? You going?
Yeah.
Oh, we did have, we will have one change to the agenda.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Two changes to the agenda. Item 5.3 should actually be under correspondence.
Oh, wait, were we going to move, staff, up to the front? Did we have to vote on that last? week?
Yeah, we don't have any staff reports.
No staff reports.
For this bill.
Is the marshal-
I thought that was.
Is the marshal joining us? Okay, all right, but in the future, he would go, pretty much first, all right. Here we go.
Okay, so I got 7:03. We'll call this meeting to order. We need to check Zoom land, make sure they can hear us. And if someone out on Zoom would reply, I'd appreciate it.
Rick on Zoom, can you hear me okay? Hi, Rick, can you hear me okay out there on Zoom?
Okay. Okay, good deal. We got full board tonight. So if you join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
The United States of America, and to the republic, stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, so we know we do have some corrections to the agenda. First one is, it should say August 15th instead of August 8th. Next one, item 5, I could be moved to correspondence. Do we have others? And if there's no others, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the agenda with those corrections.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We accept the agenda as modified. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, moving on to our consent agenda, our meeting minutes from August 1st. Any additions, corrections? And if none, I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the consent agenda.
Second that.
It's been moved and seconded. We accept the consent agenda. All in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Our next item is public comment. Do we have some folks signed up for public comment?
I do have public comment
Okay.
from a couple of folks in the audience and doesn't appear that there's any from Zoom.
Okay, doke.
Wes, if you'd like to take the mic, please. Your full name and your address for the record.
And I've got the timer, so.
Yes, my name is Wes Hauser. I live at 6475 Spruce Avenue. Can you push the button? Oh, there, how's that? Okay, yeah, my name is Wes Hauser. I live at 6475 Spruce Avenue. And I came here last week and I was wondering, you know, like the roads, I know that we've had a lot of rain. But my road on my street on Spruce Avenue has been messed up for months. And I know they started working on it yesterday. So finally they got to it. And I complained the last week and to the people, the wrong people, I'm gonna talk to the trustees. And I had to haul gravel up myself to fix my own road with my truck. It took me about 5 hours to make it drivable for my car to drive on. And my thinking is, it's never been like this in the past, not to this extent. And I was wondering, is there any, does Freeman Falls have a plan? I know that we only have one full-time employee, Dustin or Dusty. And I know I talked to the town clerk and she said that they were looking for other employees to come. I guess they have a couple contractors helping Dusty out right now. But my thinking is, in order to fix the situation, we need to have more than just Dusty and a couple part-time contractors coming in here to help out on the roads. I think, you know, I guess I heard through the grapevine that the starting wage is something like $19 an hour. And I can get anybody for $19. I mean, is there any way when you could up it and pay quite a bit more for a good lead operator to come in and help you? That would work here year round, but you gotta pay the money to do that. And I don't know how long the applications, I mean, the request for an employee has been out. But obviously the positions haven't been filled. So that was my, you know, I was gonna continue writing about the roads, but I see there's only one man and he can't do it all. So, I mean, I know it's up to you guys. I think you guys are the ones that have to approve it. And I really wish you guys would, you know, up the wage. I mean, I don't know what it's gonna take to do it. We gotta pay more taxes or whatever. But something needs to be done. Because if he could keep a handle on the roads just got such bad, you know, as well as me, just so bad. One guy couldn't repair them. You know, and I complained to her, I complained to him about it, and I should, you know, I shouldn't have to complain to them, I mean, it should be taken care of. That's how I feel. So that's about all I gotta say is if there's some way you guys can come up with some more money. And put it out, so, you know, get somebody that's qualified to run up late, come in here, work year round, that'd be great.
Thank you. And yes, we are continuing to try to work it and work some potentials.
All right, that's all I got.
Okay, thank you.
Before you go, is your road better?
Does the road get better? Okay, does the road get better? With that new road?
My hearing aids are still, I have two, wasn't I can't hear, you get still.
Has your road, has it improved?
Well, they just started on it, so, you know, like, they had to do the subgrade, then they're gonna put the material in about class 6 on top. So I don't know, I'm sure it's gonna be better than what it was, I'm sure. So that's a plus, but I mean, like I say, rather than having people coming on, we should have already have a more secure angry walls. Thank you.
Okay, we have another public commenter.
I do.
John Bell, 10691 Illinois Avenue. So I understand tonight you're gonna have the first reading for a nuisance tree ordinance. So I want to thank the staff and Todd for getting that organized and moving forward. And during your discussion period, I want you to consider that the risk for falling for dead standing trees are twofold. One is fire, but fall hazard is the greater of the two. And as the mass height of the tree increases, the damage that it can create is greater. I've seen 2 trees fall so far since I've been living here. One on the undeveloped portion of Illinois Avenue that fell against the power line about a month ago. And what I noticed after it fell was that there was a very degraded root ball. So what was at the bottom of the tree that allowed it to fall over was maybe twice the width of the tree. The second tree fell on Thomas Trail. Walking the dogs on one day, noticed it was leaning. The ground under it was heaving. The next day it was falling. But again, the root ball was almost non-existent. What I want to just again, as you discussed, you need to consider dead standing trees not only on private property but also town-owned land. and their risk and the fact that, let's make the assumption, all dead standing trees will eventually fall. And there's very little warning. So anyway, thank you for, again, moving this forward. Thank you for your discussion.
Thank you. Okay, do we have any more public commenters?
I don't have anyone else on Zoom.
And no one on Zoom. Okay, with that, we'll close the public comment period and move on to our business items. The first one is our fee schedule.
So you have before you a memo from our Office of Planning and Land Use, Miss Julia Simmons. She did work with the Planning Commission to review some considerations for your fee schedule. There is no requested action item tonight. This is just for your information of the things that were discussed at that planning commission meeting and the things that were considered there. Several of the things that they considered are outlined here, and I'd like to draw your attention down to the bottom of that memo with their conclusion. That, you know, they did work very hard to capture all of that input and translate it into the attached spreadsheet, which is the result. Many of those fees were lowered based on the note that additional pass-through costs may be incurred. And if you'll scroll down just a little bit further, the deposit notion was administratively burdensome and removed. And that they appreciated everybody's time for looking at this. We will be bringing to you an updated fee and fine schedule for your consideration, which we would like to be able to put in place and then evaluate it with a report in December.
And just for the public information, you know, we did discuss this during our work session. One of the things that we're looking heavily at is on the bigger, what we call the bigger ticket items, you know, things other than fences, decks, whatnot. Having pass-through costs, especially if we have to go outside town staff. And then we are going to probably add the nuisance tree fines and also increase the parking fines. And that was all I captured in my notes as far as summarizing what we kind of discussed about. My mic was on.
Sure, let me get on the page here. I have a lot for the fee schedule here. There it is. Collar Trust is an investment body for municipal government. It was established in 1985. We've reviewed this in a couple of past meetings and have worked to answer. I think we got all the questions at this point. Moving money here would just provide the town with more return on investment than we're currently getting, which is about 0.1% at our local bank. So moving it here would get us closer to 5% on average year after year.
Okay, trustees, any additional discussion on this?
Really just to kind of hit back on what Sunday was talking about during our work session, that you know, we're looking at about $1,700 per $100,000, $1,700 a year that we would make. You know, and it is, of course, not insured. We're making 0.1%. I mean, that's pretty rotten, but, you know, is that security? You know, because it is in fact insured. So I guess that's the only thing that the public should really be aware of is that this is not, you know, this is something that Sunday kind of hit on during the work site. It's not insured. 10% horrible, but where that money is right now is of course insured.
Yeah.
So it's $1,700. Or I guess we could round it, if we put 200 in there at some point, you know, is
400.
it's 2,500, you know, bucks worth our economy crashing, stock market collapsing. I don't know. I mean, that's going to be a question,
Yeah.
I guess, for us to discuss.
I mean, we do have the ability to pull it out on a daily basis.
And just playing devil's advocate,
Yeah,
if there was a run on
it would
banks
crash.
the day after, would that even make a difference? Because of how
Yeah.
many transactions would be taking place. I mean, this is Color Trust has, you know, I guess between Prime Plus and Edge, hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't know how they would, you know, disseminate that from monies back to the people, distribute it back to the. So I mean, what would that loss look like? At that point, would it even matter? I mean, would we just be with the whole
So
world be on fire?
I think the first decision we need to make is do we want to put more in? Because we got some in it now. We got 80,000 and change in it. And I think the first decision we're gonna have to make is, do we want to put more in? And, you know, we can just go ahead and vote on that if you want.
Yeah. I mean, personally, again, I don't know the rest of the board members here. I mean, I'm okay with putting more in, but you know, public's got to know that
Yeah, it's at risk.
it's a risk thing.
Yeah, it's just basically the same risk as what you might put in your 401k now or
Right.
or whatever you've got that you're hopefully doing long-term investing in.
Right. So we would want to make a motion on putting more money in and then.
Yeah,
we
I would
try to come up with
open
the
it
cap.
up to, like I said, I think we need to decide two things. One, do we want to put more in? And then two, how much? If number one passes.
How do the other board members feel? Like, is it worth the risk of, you know, if we were at 100,000, is $1,700 a year worth it? Or Sean, go through Sunday.
Investment basically is the only way you're gonna generate your revenue from the money, so. The sheriff's office I retired from, our entire retirement is from investments. I think it's gauging, you have to gauge the risk, and I think their risk is fairly low from what I read.
So I just want to clarify, there's $89,000 in an account with Colorado Trust currently. And what's the balance that's in the Park State?
Right now, our balance is right at about 500,000.
No, personally, for me, I wouldn't want to invest town money in anything. I wasn't willing to do myself. And of course, I've got things in securities and multiple accounts. So it's just, and most of this feels like it's going to be in securities.
Well, you know, out of those assets at Park State, only 200, I mean, half of it's insured, is my understanding. Is that correct?
I have to look at that. It's per account and we have a few accounts at Park
Okay.
State. And so by diversifying in that way, we may be covered.
Okay.
But that is an excellent question and I will be verifying that.
Well, I don't know anything about financial investments. I mean, I can see, you know, that there's a greater return and that, you know, the interest is pitiful from Colorado, from the Park State Bank rather. And we've had money in Colorado Trust for how long?
We found that resolution that was passed.
So that
here.
one, so that started back then. Okay.
March
okay.
20th, 1990 was when we got involved with Colorado Trust. The trustees Donzello point, I think one thing that shelters us a little bit is that this is a vehicle only for municipalities.
Mhm.
When I think of like a run on banks and stuff like that, I think of, I think municipalities are less likely to be so whimsical.
Right, and I think at that point, something bad has really happened,
I just know if this is largely in securities, the securities I have never gone negative.
right?
I mean, you
Okay.
don't earn a lot, but that's the buffer piece of the investment portfolio.
Okay, so we want to make a motion to approve.
Well, I think it's important to vote on if we want to add more
Okay,
money, since we already have some. And then if that answer is yes, then the question is how much.
okay.
So, yeah.
So another question. What is that money used for? The 89,000?
We're required to hold certain amounts of funds. One of them is from Lotto. You can probably help me with this without looking at it, but we have to sit on certain amounts for.
Yeah, so I think that we keep our Tabor reserve in there, our required Tabor reserve in there, and outside of that, it is part of your general fund. So it is stuff that it is funding that would be able to be transferred back to the regular account should we need it to cover expenses.
And was there any mention, and I appreciate your doing that detective work on it, because that was probably a pretty nasty project.
It needed to happen.
Yeah.
I appreciate the opportunity.
What was the original amount put in?
I don't know that. That's a very
Okay.
good question.
But it's been utilized since 1990s.
We have continuously been involved with them since that March
Colorado.
20th, 1990.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah,
So
if you want to make a motion on, I'd entertain a motion on whether or not we want to add more to Colorado Trust.
all right. Yeah. Like to make a motion to whether or not we want to raise our funds in a Colorado Trust,
Are you suggesting that we do?
and that we do. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded that we invest more in Colorado Trust. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is there anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Now the next question would be, how much?
Whatever range of numbers we settle on, I think a percentage would be a good thing so that I have the flexibility, to fund our checking account as needed. So that if I'm instructed to hold a percentage of our funds in Colorado Trust, if our regular checking account dips down, I would have the freedom to move money back into our checking without revisiting this process.
What is the number that you would like to see?
I think having 200,000 in it is good. It's about total. So that would be adding about 110 to our current investment in that.
Is it about 45% of what we have total in our coffers? Is
Yeah,
that accurate-ish? Okay.
we have big things coming in and
Right.
Brian just wrote a bunch of big checks, so. But yeah, that should be pretty close to that number.
Did you
So-
say 25%?
No, I was saying
45.
45, about approximately 45.
Yeah, I think like 40% or, just back a half would be
Yeah.
safe. Is my take on it.
So how about a motion along the lines of, I would move that we would invest up to 40% in Colorado Trust out of our general fund balance. Does that make sense?
I think there's a lot of wisdom in that up to part of that as well.
So
Yes, I
40%,
think that's-
not 45, 40%.
is 40%, because we got what, 500,000 now, 40% would be,
Yep.
yeah,
And I like the up to part. I think that was good.
up to.
Yeah.
So are we talking about an additional 200?
It would be an additional 110 approximately.
Additional
So yeah, we
110,
would
okay.
consider 89.
I'm sorry,
the
yeah, you said that.
foundation for that. Yeah. The up to part is good because if I start getting nervous, that would give me the ability to quickly move money out of it as well. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that.
So you're accepting the responsibility for daily monitoring of the stock market. Good on you.
I heard myself do that.
Okay, there's a motion on the table. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded that we instruct staff to invest up to 40% of our general fund balance in Colo Trust. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, our next item, since item 5.3 is moved into correspondence, would be ordinance 2023-02. I'm going to pull that up because I'll need to, after discussion, I'll need to read it. Do we have any additional discussion on this proposed ordinance to add? It's basically, the addition is in addition to our existing definition. A nuisance tree is also defined as a dead or dying standing tree or a tree that poses a fire hazard.
Can we,
Well, we go to, I can go ahead and read the whole thing. In fact, I probably ought to read the whole thing for the first reading and then we vote on it. How's that? Let's see.
I guess we can't amend it.
Get a drink of
On
water
this
before
first
I try to
reading.
read it. Okay. Down at Green Mountain Falls, ordinance number 2023-03, an ordinance amending chapter 6 of the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code regarding the definition of nuisance trees, whereas the town wishes to modify the definition of nuisance trees in the Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code. Now therefore be it ordained by the Board of Trustees of the Town of Green Mountain Falls, Colorado, on section 1, the definition of nuisance trees in chapter 6, article 8, section 6-147 of the Town of Green Mountain Falls Municipal Code is hereby amended to read as follows. And I'll go ahead and read it. And section 6-147 definitions. Nuisance trees are defined as trees or limbs thereof which pose a threat to public health or safety or adjacent public property, including but not limited to public right-of-ways or trees which harbor any destructive or communicable disease or other pestilence which endangers the well-being of other trees in the town, or which are capable of causing an epidemic spread of insect infestation. In addition, a nuisance tree is also defined as a dead or dying standing tree or a tree that poses a fire hazard. Section 2 is a severability clause. If any section, paragraph, clause, or provisions of this ordinance shall for any reason be held to be invalid or unenforceable, the invalidity or enforceability of such section, paragraph, clause, or provision shall not affect any of the remaining provisions of this ordinance. The intent being that the same are severable. And section 3 is a safety. Board of Trustees finds that the adoption of this ordinance is necessary for the protection of health, safety, and welfare of the public. And section 4, the effective date, this ordinance shall become effective after final approval and adoption on second reading. And it'd be introduced and ordered published effectively today. So do we have any further discussion or you ready to put a motion on the table?
I do have a need for clarification here. The emphasis on public property.
Yeah, that hadn't changed from our original.
No, I know.
Yeah,
I've just thought more about it. So does that mean that if the threat is to private property, that this does not apply?
I wouldn't think that'd be the case, but Becky, how do you read that?
Well, it says public health or safety.
Yeah, it's public health and
Right.
safety. So I think we got a clause.
Following unused
Property.
public,
Yeah,
risk, public
Public
health.
right of way.
Are you talking about like town liability and CSU liability, stuff like?
it's the limitation of. It kind of has a focus on public property in some of the language.
Mm.
Um,
But generally, it just states the.
I think.
Safety in
Yeah,
general, right?
what defined as trees or limbs thereof which pose a threat to public health or safety. There you get the public health or safety piece into it. Or adjacent public property, but it's public health or safety.
Mhm.
And I think I think that would be the key to us needing it.
So this includes private property?
Adjacent private property.
Mhm.
Okay.
So we're not going to put the word private in there as well?
It just seems like it would really tie the hands of the town to do anything. Let's say if somebody sent you a photograph of a tree that's about to fall on my house, but it's on my neighbor's property, does this give the town the right to do anything?
Says threat to public health and safety.
Yeah, I would think that'd be a threat to
That'd be a
public
It could
health.
probably be modified
But-
to
But does
include.
that automatically involve?
So you're wanting to modify it possibly with private? property
Well,
mentioned in it?
So, and I'll give you some background really quick. My initial email to legal was really clear. I just described what we're trying to do. And nothing that I said had anything to do with public property. You know, I said, we have, distant owners in some cases, right, who are next to people who have done really hard work to protect their property. And we want to give the marshal teeth and enforcement capability. And this is what they came back with. So I think it's that first line. Yeah.
I do think that you could modify if the concern is to also protect the neighboring property. It could be modified to say nuisance trees are defined as trees, limbs, therefore of which pose a threat to public health or safety or adjacent public or adjacent property or adjacent public or private property.
Yeah, I think that would be better. I mean, obviously, I'm no lawyer, but.
Would you guys agree that maybe removing that one word that's highlighted would correct all the issues?
I think
Take the
so.
public out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Are we able to approve this?
Well,
with
what I can
that
do is
change?
I'll reread the definition without that in
Yeah.
it. And then we basically go ahead and scratch that. And then we'll have a second reading that does not include that. In the meantime, we probably ought to check, make sure the legal folks understand what we're doing.
I believe legal came back and said that we don't need a second reading. It does need to post in the paper, but we don't have to do a second reading on.
We don't have to do a second reading. Well,
And
it
I'd
does say-
also like to discuss revising the last sentence in consideration for what Catherine mentioned for a falling tree and our public speaker also mentioned that dead or dying standing tree, it could also be a living tree, and poses a fire hazard. If we could also include falling hazard.
Yeah, I think just by saying, in addition, nuisance tree is also defined as dead or dying standing tree or a tree that poses or any tree that
Okay,
poses a fire or falling hazard.
thank you.
Or any tree, yeah.
And then if you'll scroll down to the end of the ordinance here,
Says adopted on second reading.
yeah, we did get clarification from legal. It will become effective 30 days after its date of publication. So it is hitting the paper. Do you have a date when it's hitting the paper?
This week, I think.
So it should come out this Wednesday.
Okay, did they give an explanation on why we don't need a second reading? Because the previous one, we did have to do a second reading.
That one was a building code update.
That's why we had to do a second reading.
Yep. And this one, per your municipal code, just requires a first reading and then upon
Publication.
30 days after
Okay.
publication.
Oh, we lost. No. Okay,
Hey, if what's posted in the paper.
we may be
Doesn't
having a
have
little
this
technical
language that
difficulty
should-
here in the town hall. Just bear with us a second.
Right, because what's posted has
That same.
the original language, right?
So we may need to do, we can do a second reading, but it won't, yeah.
Just, yeah, heads up. Give me one sec.
Yeah. Did it kick you off of Zoom or something?
Yeah, I gotta get all the way back.
Okay. Do we want to take a short recess while you get back online?
I would think about that.
Okay, let's take a quick 5-minute recess then.
So we may need to do a second reading just because it was shown in the ordinance that we posted that we would do a second reading. We may need to do a second reading, which will be within that 30-day period. It'll just be a order of operations to occur at your next meeting. Yeah, just because the language that we published in the paper says that there'll be a second reading, so.
Check this out.
Yeah, that regional building, I've been tuning in via Zoom. They haven't.
You want to go serve lunch.
I'm on a job in Pueblo. I'm just, and they're really good about hounding me.
Oh, yeah, Gina.
No, it's not Gina anymore. It's now Linda. She retired.
Well, no, there's a new.
Or somebody retired.
Her name is. The lawyers also.
Oh, well, I'm getting calls from Linda too. So and I get calls from IT. You wanna,
Well, what happened was they didn't have the form.
oh, seriously?
So it's like,